If you would have asked me before I sketched out cellular restoration what color I thought it would be, I wouldn't have said pink and purple, but here we are. Hi, hey, hello. If you're new here, my name is Rain. If you're not new here, welcome back. I really appreciate you stopping on by to my little corner of the internet. I'm going to be rendering cellular restoration a little bit more this week. If you want to see me sketch out cellular restoration, you can look at the video that I will have linked up in the card. Then, if you have the time to sit all the way through this video, I would really appreciate it, especially if you choose to draw along or get creative alongside me. Creating is a part and a form of self-love, so I would love to hear about it in the comments down below if you get up to anything fun. And if you feel comfortable sharing it with me, go for it. I have my social medias linked in the link tree below. I want to talk about taking time and kind of taking care of yourself as an artist while also discussing the importance of being aware of who you are as an artist in terms of your kind of production speed and knowing when to take a break and kind of just breathe for a minute. Not only because I just saw a concert where the creator had been on hiatus for quite some time, not quite some time sounds a bit intense, a couple of years, and the discussion came from something that I've been thinking about a lot on the internet recently, but also because I have been having kind of increased issues with my health recently, and so I want to talk about something very interesting kind of in the YouTube sphere and then just the general creative sphere. And I don't know, maybe talk about having more realistic expectations for people and yourself, because the internet is a very interesting reflection, more of a funhouse mirror reflection of what real life is like, especially for artists, because there is so much more to being an artist than the actual just outright creation of art when you exist on the internet and you're watching the creation of work and the thriving and growing of success, especially like small businesses. We had that kind of trend that I admittedly hated, the it costs so much because it takes me hours trend. I didn't hate it because I felt like artists shouldn't be justifying their prices. I feel like they shouldn't have to, for certain. I don't feel like artists who are doing artisan handcrafted things should have to justify their prices. I hated it because the song was so annoying, like beyond incomprehensibly grating on my brain cells. It just killed me inside. But I think that was kind of a trend that reminded us as a demographic of consumers that handcrafted and handmade goods, small businesses have to put a lot more into their actual business and the timeline, the creation of things, production to maintain a sellable quality than more consumerist, big name brands kind of do. When you have when you have things like Shein or Temu, is mass produced, probably using labor that is unethical and incredibly dangerous to the people who are engaging with it, whether they are adults or not, is up for debate. And I don't know that this is the place to have that discussion. I am not a fashion channel and I'm not as well informed about those companies because I refuse to support them personally. But I find that when you have as many brands like that who produce things on such a large and rapid scale, we forget the value of people's work and their time and the importance that people get paid a livable wage and get to thrive off of their creativity, which is something that I find incredibly interesting and increasingly interesting as the internet becomes a larger and larger portion of being a successful artist for a lot of people. And so I wanted to talk about it because I don't intend to be a full-time artist ever, but I truly love being an artist on the internet at the scale I am an artist on the internet. And that was something that came up at the concert as well. Because the way this creator functions, Will Wood, he is more of, not more of, but he is a comedian and a personality as much as he is an artist, perhaps, at least when performing. And I'm always somebody who very much believes that there should be a distinct separation between your work life and your personal life. I believe that there needs to be a strong separation, even when you're an artist, between who you are in your real day to day and who you are in intimate moments with the people you love. Because if you allow those things to blend together, you never get away from work and you never give yourself the chance to breathe and grow and heal and do the things that we need to do to be human and have healthy boundaries in life, right? And that's something I need to work with at my paid job in education a lot, because I don't have healthy boundaries, and I literally let teenagers like walk all over me in terms of the days of the week I work and the hours I work, which is irrelevant to this conversation. Not irrelevant, but not important. But he discussed how he went on hiatus largely because he got bigger than he ever truly thought he was going to be, or he didn't realize what being bigger actually meant when he was dreaming about it when he was younger. And that was something that fundamentally I thought was really important, because I think we do have these illusions as people where we think that being famous is great, and we're wrong. And I don't think that we talk about that enough, but being famous is a horrible thing for a lot of people, because you lose the privacy that you should be entitled to as a human being, right? And when you lose that privacy, you lose the ability to protect yourself and actually be real anymore. Once you stop having privacy, once you stop having a distinction between the information you put out there and the information that is stolen from you or leaked without your consent, you lose control of the narrative of who you are. And that doesn't mean that people are lying about who they are. That doesn't mean that people on the internet, actors, creators of any capacity, are trying to deceive consumers, fans, enjoyers of their work to themselves. But what it means is that you lose the ability to distinguish between real and false components of the person. As the personality becomes bigger than the actual information that was voluntarily provided, you lose the ability to say, that's actually not true, because it just kind of becomes a part of the popular zeitgeist. And when you reach a certain size on the internet, that's what happens to you. You are no longer in control of who you are, and instead, who you are is something that you just have to live up to, because there's no way for you to actually correct the record and be your true, authentic self anymore. Your public persona is an unavoidable fact of your life at that point, and you can't always come back from that. And that's something that I think people don't really understand when it comes to things like going viral and having really popular videos and things like that on spaces like YouTube. And when people dream of being a YouTuber when they grow up, I don't know how popular that is anymore as a career goal, but when I was super little, I'm not that much older than YouTube, I don't believe. So when I was little, being a YouTuber and making money on YouTube seemed like a cool thing. It seemed like some sort of magical experience where you got to do what you loved. And I believe that it can be that. I truly do. I love what I do here on the internet. But what I do here on the internet isn't my livelihood. this is a form and an extra step in my creative expression. Talking about my work, expressing the narratives, and showing people my work, talking about it, building a community of people whom aren't like-minded, but similarly moral, I guess would be the best way to articulate it, and like my work. That is something that is part of being an artist for me. I like community and I like sharing my work with people. Additionally, I want more spaces on the internet where people with disabilities, mental health conditions, all sorts of things are safe to talk without being lambasted in an art specific space. I don't know how much I've talked about it in recent months, and I'm not sure how much I've talked about it since I hit 1,000 subscribers. Not even sure how many of my 1,000 subscribers are really people who actually watch my videos. But when it comes down to it, I very much feel like the art world is actually behind when it comes to diversity and inclusion. And I feel like we're particularly behind in creating spaces and allowing room for people of these communities to combat the stereotypes that have existed about us for so long, right? And in art history, you know, for people like me, people who are chronically ill, especially with invisible illnesses in women, such as myself, would be a fetishization and something utilized to further our inferiority to man, but also our fragility and need for their constant protection, right? You have things like tuberculosis, the wasting disease, consumption, which was highly erotic for a time. Edgar Allan Poe had said himself that his cousin, I believe it was his cousin, I'm not sure who it was, but or a friend, but somebody close to him had passed from it, and he thought it was a beautiful way to die, and that it was amazing that they were taken out by something so wonderful, because it was truly to them fragility, femininity. And when you think about beauty trends in America, in the kind of it's not America's Got Talent, it was that modeling show that was very popular with, I believe the famous model from that was named Tara or Tara or something of that nature, but it's irrelevant. Beauty standards in America in the early 2000s were very tall, very skinny people, and there wasn't room for diversity in body types. Women who were smaller than me, like larger than 100 pounds at like 5'6", would be like obese or something of that nature. Like 120 pounds was overweight at that time to women who wanted to model, right? And I feel like that is a continuation of some of the components of wasting consumption that was so attractive to people back then. You would grow sickly thin because you quite literally were just expelling, is the nice way I'll say, everything inside of you. You couldn't eat, and you just kind of withered away. And it was thought to be a beautiful blessing of a way to go, despite the fact that it was incredibly painful, stressful, and just miserable way to pass on. But it was fetishized, and it's a chronic illness whom while it did take lives, the symptoms are not completely abnormal to kind of aspects of current chronic illnesses, and you kind of encounter this error where people find eroticism in other people's pain and suffering through either the fragility and the dependency that it creates, or a lack of self-defense, things like that. And I think that creating a space like this one where people can simply create art about anything related to their health or their identity or their passions without that kind of combating nature of the stereotype that exists within art specifically. I think that managing stereotypes and a lack of inclusion outside of art is a completely different process that I am not equipped to handle or discuss. But within art, the more that we kind of present our narrative through art, the more common we will become, right? That goes for things like propaganda, right? It's our propagandized idea. That's why we're creating disability art. This is cellular restoration, not disability. If anything, this is like anti-disability. Girl like heals herself rapid speed, collecting cells and whatever, like immediate healing, like the anti of how I feel right now. This concert is going to be wearing on my body for months to come, but it was beyond a wonderful experience, and I want to talk more about how what I learned from the concert as like an experience in my personal life has also changed my artistic outlook eventually. But as an aside, the more we create art about ourselves and foster a community where we can explore ourselves and create art without anxieties around these ideas, the better the world will be, because we'll have more art created by people and continue to see their value, which is not a great way to have to look at humanity and art creation as we're creating a value for somebody else, but it's how things need to work to be normalized a lot of the time. And I think that might be part of why creating videos about my work and talking about my work is part of the process, because I want to have a value that I offer in some capacity, regardless of if it's something that's actually particularly meaningful in the grand scheme of things or not. To further articulate this, I think that there is an inherent value behind talking and communicating and trying to share different perspectives. Thank you for knocking over my chapstick, William. That was very kind of you. But when we allow space for communication and the sharing of our thoughts and opinions, and we put ourselves in a position where we can accept criticism, but we try to foster respectful and pleasant conversations, or help people see additional sides or figure themselves out, or we try to create a space where people can simply get away from things, that is inherently valuable, especially on the internet, where a lot of things are a toxic, how I describe it to my partner, a toxic circle jerk of kind of forcing people to confront their same ideas and then arguing with each other and then not actually communicating, simply fighting. And I hate that about the internet. I think the internet is an incredibly powerful and influential place, and that we're not using it for good. We're using it more or less to push people towards horrible situations and not so great ideologies or extremist ends or fostering dangerous mindsets, but that's also kind of irrelevant to my point, because socio and political are not as in my wheelhouse as they probably should be as an artist. You know, that was one of the reasons I thought I couldn't be an artist when I was younger, because I didn't think I had anything to say that was actually meaningful. And that was something that took me a long time to break out of, right? And I think sometimes when I'm creating my disability work specifically, I can't tell if I'm doing it for myself and catharsis as much as I am to feel like I'm creating a value beyond drawing pretty women. Because I didn't draw cellular restoration to say something broader about cellular restoration. I thought I could make a really pretty woman with fun goopy stuff coming out of her, and I wanted to do it. And that's not very artist of me, modern artist of me, right? Not trying to say anything, just trying to draw pretty ladies. But that's kind of the beauty behind art, you know? I'm able to input thoughts about disability, health, how amazing this would be for somebody who has poor health like I do. But at the end of the day, like, I'm just hoping that this turns out to be a really pretty woman. And if you care about me and my input about, I don't know, thinking this would be a really magical skill and a super cool superpower for people with health issues, then like cool. But at the end of the day, if you like the art, you like the art, and that's super groovy, right? Um, Similarly, I saw probably one of the more diverse demographics of people at that concert. Not necessarily in terms of like able-bodiedness or ethnicity. I wasn't paying attention to that, but it was like the actual way people presented themselves. And that was something I found incredibly indulging. I don't know. The best way to describe it would be I feel like when I went to uh, concerts and musical events when I was younger and a little bit healthier, specifically Warped Tour was where I went a lot. Went to 3 of them, I believe. So 2016, 2015, and I believe 2014 I went. Maybe I only went 2015. No, I think I went 3 years. But a lot of people were dressed similarly. Not the same, but a lot of old people who attended Warped Tour were pretty in a similar kind of alt demographic. Like, I don't know how to articulate it beyond. We had a very similar mutual component of our identity that brought us to alt music, and we all expressed it very similarly. And I don't know if it's because Willwood blends genres so well or moves between them between albums quite fluently, or if it's the things that he talks about feels very real and the music is something that isn't as easily defined within a genre as something like your standard bands that are in the kind of, I was going to say the classic alt genre, but when I think about the alt music tab on apps and things nowadays, I don't think I know what alt music is anymore in a polite way. I don't know what genre I listen to. I kind of listen to a broader array. But I'll see people like Billie Eilish or Sabrina Carpenter sometimes go into the alt music. And I'm like, that's not really what alt music was when I was younger. Which makes me feel old, but I'm not. I'm actually really young, I swear. But like when you thought about alt back when Warped Tour was more around, especially the earlier years, I assume. I wasn't as human then. I couldn't just like go to concerts, I had to beg my mom for the last 3, right? But you would think more bands like Sleeping with Sirens, Pierce the Veil, All Time Low, Hands with Houses, My Brain is Blanking, Issues, and you get your heavier bands, heavier, like Crown the Empire, you know, I believe the new Warped Tour that's going to like 4 places has like Simple Plan and Good Charlotte, like Alt and Green Day. Sum 41 played at the last one, and I was like, oh, that's kind of older alt. But, alt was just a little bit different back then, I think. Not in like a bad way, I don't particularly care, I just don't necessarily know what the distinctions are anymore. They've blended, and I'm not intelligent enough to keep up, or I don't care enough. I like the music I like, and I like different genres, so it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But I usually like old music heavier and kind of funky singer-songwriter stuff, more like Willwood. But I don't know what genre he is. And you know what? I think that lack of distinct genre, that easy, convenient label that we can slap on him, makes him something that is so much more pleasurable as a community of people who like his work. And it kind of unites people of very different, otherwise, genres and perspectives and life views into one place. I just saw so much different personality there, and it was a very magical kind of experience to see so many people whom I know I probably would never talk to ever outside of that building, but I had pleasant little offhand conversations with people while we waited for the show to start, and we got our food and we settled in. And it felt good. It felt like the type of community that I want to have one day. I want to collect a identity for myself where I, at the very, very least, attract people from different worldviews sometimes to at least sit down and enjoy art with me my creating art, and then people to enjoy my talking and my art. And I think that's why I like podcasts. While I don't have the voice and the personality to maintain a podcast, I like the idea of having a place where visuals are not, you can sit down and you can just listen to somebody and they're there. And on the internet, I feel like it's getting a little bit harder to find places where that can be a passive kind of brainless experience. And I am enjoying and valuing people's passive little storytellings about their lives here and there, and experiences, and just random thoughts and opinions without the desire for a debate more and more. I'm tired of opening my phone and seeing people fighting about things and going to war constantly. And I just want more time where I can exist with a stranger on the internet, like you're existing with me now, and we can just enjoy a shared desire to sit for 45 minutes and do something creative. Or perhaps you enjoy listening to me ramble and I help you while you clean your house and things like that. Regardless of why you're here, I am hoping that I can continue to be a place where I provide insightful, from time to time, rarely, comments and kind of ideas and discussions, whilst also at the very least just being a safe space. And that's something that's very important to me. And at the concert, I think I resonated with, despite it not being directly said. But once you get so big on the internet, you're not a safe space anymore because you're no longer safe, right? And whether that's like a physical safety or just who you are feels threatened, you become somebody different, and you kind of lose that safety of yourself. You no longer feel like you can go online and exist and function and experience just passive aspects of life, right? Because every time you open your phone now, there's somebody who hates you in your DMs, or there's somebody who wants to fight with you about your art and call you stupid or disgusting, or tell you that your work is worthless and it'll never be good enough, right? And I am hoping that I can continue to create videos and enjoy my space on the internet for a very long time without my channel getting excessive popularity from things that I don't really have control over. So viewership on my channel is incredibly sporadic. At the time that I am talking right now, my last video has about 30 views, and the video before it has about 1,000 views. I have videos on my channel that have like 3,000, 4,000-ish views. I haven't checked them in a long time. And then I have an average viewership of maybe 100 subscribers who regularly tune in, right? And I think that's because I don't always talk about things that people actually really care about, or perhaps I don't know how to quote unquote play the game, but I don't think I really want to learn how to play it. I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and if people find me and come back, then that's what I wanted to happen. I want people to stay because they like me, and if I play the game and I get random people consuming my content en masse, a lot of the people who subscribe are not going to stay because they like me. They're going to stay because they think I'm going to create content that is incredibly consistent within the theme. Now, these videos that do really good are the overwhelming majority of the time videos about me learning something new and me then sharing the information I learned. And I love education. I want to work in education. Obviously, I talk about it a lot on my channel. I value it a lot. But I don't want to be a channel completely based around educating people, because I think that I need to have a separation between my work life and my creative life and then my personal life, right? My work life is in education. I work 40 hours a week educating people, helping them, and I work more than 40 hours a week because just because I can't get paid for more than 40 hours, that doesn't mean that when a student comes to me and they have a deadline and they're stressed, I have the heart to turn them away. And I already kind of let my personal life get lost to my lack of boundaries and my desire to see people thrive and succeed. And I don't want then my creative space to become increasingly about education all the time. I want to share that insight from time to time when I learn something particularly important or I take a class and I really want to share it for people who are thinking about taking it in the future. I'm planning to do a video about what I learned in 3D modeling. And that video is probably going to do really, really good. And I'm going to see my channel grow by a absurd amount of subscribers, and then I'm going to fall back to maybe 100 viewers, and I'm going to be completely happy with it because I am growing at my own pace as an artist, which is hopefully the theme of the video. While it took me a long time to get here, I want to talk about how we need to stop comparing ourselves to other people and allow ourselves to grow independently at the rate that feels most comfortable to us. Was it perfectly linear? Absolutely not. I could never be perfectly linear, but I hope that I took you on a bit of a journey to explain how the way that we exist online eventually becomes out of our control. And even when it isn't out of our control, we generally try to present our best narrative. And I've talked about it a lot on my channel, that I try to show my not great art as well. And my bad sketch weeks, I have some lazy art. I think last week was a lazy art week video. And then I had a bad art week where I felt like all my art was bad. Whether it actually turns out bad is fundamentally different than how I'm feeling as an artist. And I think when you get to a point where your skill set is honed enough, what you perceive as horrible work from you will still look really good to other people. And that's something that becomes a touch unavoidable, but that's why I base bad art weeks on feeling, not quality, because everybody grows at their own pace. I'm actually being kind of linear or like smooth in my transitions, but this never happens to me. But basically, what I'm trying to articulate is that what we see on the internet is not real. No matter how real someone is trying to be, there are simply not enough moments and capacity to interpersonally connect with every single person on the internet that we view. And because we're only viewing snippets of these people's lives, you're only viewing a snippet of my life for 30 minutes to an hour and 30-ish minutes per week. That's not all of us, right? And I only can create so much art, especially with a 40-hour week work schedule and a chronic illness. Oh my god, I'm so tired. But that's kind of another aside. We've had 50 asides so far. And we can't present everything on the internet. We can't be live 24 hours consuming people 24 hours. And so things will always develop and exist outside of the internet, right? And we can't have those nuanced conversations one-on-one to actually dive deeper and ask the questions we need to even understand people the way that we do in interpersonal aspects of our life. When we gather loads of people on the internet to consume one singular thing, we're not always going to understand that singular thing the same way, right? If there are 5 of us and we all read the same Twitter post, it's not Twitter anymore, Blue Sky post, because I'm on Blue Sky, not Twitter, we're not all gonna interpret it the exact same way, probably. We aren't going to interpret text tones the same way because they probably don't have text indicators on that post. And when we hear certain words, we might not understand how people are using them, vernaculars, different analogies people are raised with, right? When you have a bunch of people, we don't always understand things the same way. And because of that lack of interpersonal capacity, and the way the internet is kind of just structured and how we engage with it just as a society, we don't really ask the clarifying question to understand. We just kind of carry on with how we interpreted it until we're proven wrong or we get in an argument. Um, and so we don't get to know people the same way. We kind of probably continue onward with just a negative opinion, and they didn't even mean what we interpreted, right? And they don't have time to explain it to everybody. And they might not even realize they came across wrong until they're arguing with individual comments. And you're probably not going to see it because you kept going and you were like, wow, that left a bad taste in my mouth. And you moved on with your life. And so, effectively, what I'm trying to say is that the internet is not really real right now. And it's partially because of the nature of the internet. It will never be truly real and authentic anymore, right? Because there's just not enough time in the day to be completely authentic. But additionally, because we've kind of built a culture around the internet and the way we consume it and interact with it, that doesn't actually breed the same systems that we engage with in actual interpersonal relationships. You can't just turn off a conflict and mute a conflict the same way when it's happening in front of you. And while we should have healthy boundaries and be able to say, I need a moment to breathe, you have to resolve it eventually. Or move to another city. You can't just avoid things the same way you can on the internet, right? And so when it comes to artists and art creation and art progression, you shouldn't take that at face value either. And it took me a long time to learn this, and I don't feel like I talk about it as much as I want to, but it's something I need to keep reminding myself. I know this intrinsically. It is a fact that I wholeheartedly understand and believe in 100%, but I forget it because the internet is so different and it can kind of control a lot of the ways that you perceive information. But art progression is not linear, and no one progresses at the same rate. And thus, when we see art on the internet, art progression, tutorials, videos explaining things, how to get good quick, how to get good at all, it is never going to happen at the same rate that they say it did. Nobody is going to progress at the exact same rate that I did. And even if you do progress at the same rate, we're not going to reach the same conclusion because we're fundamentally different people. And so we're not going to have the same artistic motivations, drives, passions, influences. Whether we study the same way, your art style isn't going to be the same as mine because an art style is a kind of extension of who you are, right? It doesn't sound right to people who aren't artists. So if you're a creative in a way that is not illustrative, I just don't have the grasp personally, the experience to know how this manifests for you and artistic styles and music, for example. I figure they are very much still an extension of you. I just don't know how that manifests, right? Because I'm an illustrator, a visual creator, right? Visual, paper, flat art. Even when I work in clay, I think my style is different than my paper art, right? Paper art. We're getting messy. I lack the words to explain things. I'm very sleep deprived. But basically what I'm trying to say is that because my art style is an extension of me and the medium I use and the mediums I like to use, you're probably not going to like the same mediums. You're not going to use the same mixed media systems that I use. And even if you do, you're probably not going to like to put goofy little jelly bean circles on people's butts because you think they look like a great way to indicate curves. Or put the little jelly beans under people's eyeballs. Or do the little line hatches over the bridge of the nose, right? But you might take some things about my style. Or if you're studying my style because you like it and you're trying to find yourself, you might copy it the best you can and find, wow, I really hate purple shadows. And that's great. Good for you. I love that you're going to pick a different shadow color as your favorite. And that is a singular decision that you made because you just didn't like it when you did it. that makes your style now different than mine. And you're going to figure that out at a different pace than I did. And I probably still am. Because while I have my art style right now, and it's extension of who I am right now, in 10 years I'm going to probably be a very different me. And that different me might not really like curve the same way I do right now. Or I'll discover a way of drawing eyes that literally just makes my breath just stop. Because sometimes when I discover something about my art that I love, even I'm kind of taken away. I'm like, wow, I made that, and I feel really good at something right now. And it's a wonderful feeling, but you're going to come across it at a different pace than me. And I think that was something that I found really interesting about Wilwa's discussion, because he talked about how he just never expected it to happen so fast and so inconceivably fast. And you just kind of, you wake up one day after going viral and your world is now completely different forever, right? When you go viral on that scale, your life is different forever. You're never going to go back to who you were and where you were before, because now there are tens upon hundreds of thousands more people looking at you overnight. That's tens of hundreds of thousands more impressions that you just made in one singular instance overnight. And you were given no opportunities, zero chance to actually grapple with and gradually progress and process, right? Because you weren't given the chance to slowly build and adapt to these new feelings and these new heights and these new levels of influence, and now everything is different. And that's why I really am scared of growing fast on the internet, and I'm really happy when my videos just grow a little bit. And I feel really, really special with one more person subscribes, and it's not a video that got thousands of views, because I know that they liked me and they liked my art, and that was a kind of individual impression that is likely going to stay. And I encourage you to watch multiple of my videos before you subscribe, despite the fact that I'm about to ask you to subscribe. I hope you can permit me a conclusion rather than an outro this week, because I have closing thoughts rather than my usual kind of quick end, because I talked too long. I did talk too long, but I want to conclude and wrap up my thoughts. And there's not a lot of them because my brain is empty right now and I'm exhausted. But I do want to say that I very intentionally did not force myself to finish this piece this week, because I noticed that I do that recently, because I want to feel like my videos concluded and you don't need to return. But by forcing myself to do that, I'm failing to go at my own pace, which is the opposite of what I try to tell artists and people who create art and feel maybe like they're not making the progress they want to at the moment and things like that. And so if I force myself to conclude my pieces, am I really allowing myself the chance to be an artist and grow? Maybe forcing myself to have a deadline is innately something that's good for my artistic process from time to time, but it's most certainly not always good. And this piece deserves better than that. It deserves more care than me trying to cram it in and then trying to edit it down to fit in a video, because you just spent almost 45 minutes of your life watching me create pretty linearly, only really cutting out the parts where my hair and half my head was in the way of the camera. So I'm obviously not an oil painter, but I still feel like I need to push the notion that you don't need to finish one art piece a week. It's not always realistic, and it probably isn't realistic for the majority of people, especially people who have full-time jobs like me and need to take care of themselves because they have health issues like I do. So I sketched cellular restoration last week. I did a lot of the rendering this week, and I'm going to hopefully finish it next week. But if I don't, it's coming, and it'll come at its own pace. Because it's not good for me to push myself, to rush. And I'm going to grow and go at my own pace. And I need to remember that. I'm not preaching to a choir. I'm reminding myself of this, and I'm hopefully helping somebody who's frustrated with their progression also realize that it's gonna happen. You're going to look back and you're going to feel so cool. I promise. When I look back at my first sketchbook, I'm like, I'm really cool, aren't I? It's gonna happen. You just need to keep going, and you'll grow at your own pace, and you'll get there. And there is absolutely no point in your life where it's too late to start. You are always capable of becoming an artist, whether you get paid for it or you do it because you love it. And we need to be more honest and respectful about that. So if you liked this video, like it, dislike if you dislike it. And you know what? Maybe watch more of my content before you subscribe. But if you like this type of stuff, the visuals won't always be the same, but the unhinged rambling will. So if you feel like returning, I would appreciate it if you join me and my little art corner of the internet. So thank you for watching all the way through, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, night, wherever you are. And with all of that being said, goodbye.